Welcome back to Medical Monday. We're talking about hearing loss and hearing solutions with Dr. David Gnewikow. Your office is in Mount Juliet, Advanced Hearing Solutions. Thank you for being here tonight. We've had some great calls. We still have time for sneak in a few more. So if you have a question, it's your opportunity to get free advice. 615-737-PLUS. Obviously, I know here's my question. How do you find a good audiologist?
Okay.
You've given us great advice.
Step one is give us a call. No, my office is Advanced Hearing Solutions. We've been in practice for going on 12 years in Mount Juliet. Very convenient location, right off the interstate, kind of easy to get to. But I don't expect every person watching this show to call my office. Several things to look at when you're looking for hearing care. First is seek an audiologist. So an audiologist minimally has a doctorate degree, has been through college, through a graduate program, trained specifically in hearing. There are a lot of people who sell hearing aids who are not audiologists, and I won't go into all that, but I certainly would recommend seeing somebody with the highest level of expertise, and that would be an audiologist. Second, very simply, if I'm looking to buy a new phone, if I'm looking to buy a new computer, the first thing I do, the first people in my generation, the first people in my kids' generation, the first thing we do is we look at reviews online.
Yes.
And so I would strongly encourage that. You know, do your homework, look at online reviews. You can learn a whole lot about an audiologist if they have none, or if they have a lot, if they have a lot of positive, if they have a lot of negative. Ask around, ask your friends. That's a really good way to do it. Lastly, I've had people come in and just say, I just want to interview you. We do that. We offer our first visit at no charge. So you come in, you interview myself, interview my audiologist, ask some questions. How do you guys do business? What about your trial period? Hey, I heard you have a payment plan. I mean, we kind of talk through that with people at no charge if they want to come in and have that discussion. I've had people come in and say, I don't want you to test my hearing. I just want to talk to you. That's perfectly fine. And if somebody's not comfortable doing that, that should kind of be a red flag that maybe, hey, they're all in this completely for the sale. So
and that was going to be my next question. What's the sign that you should just get up and say thank you and go elsewhere?
Never, ever, ever give in to a high pressure push that you must buy a hearing aid today. This is like going and buying a used car and they say, well, the price is going to change. Most people are pretty keenly aware, and they'll come into our office and I went such and such, and boy, I could tell they were just in it to sell a hearing aid. Number one, an audiologist should be interested in you. They should be interested in your family. They should ask questions like, okay, how is hearing loss affecting your life? What kind of situations are you having trouble? Where would you like to see some improvement? Those are the real kind of factors that you say, okay, this person actually does have some interest in me, not just selling me a particular product.
Okay, that's a good place to start, that's for sure.
Yep.
I know you primarily deal with adults, but when it comes to kids, and if you're a parent thinking, this is more than just ear infections, water in the ears, or whatever. Sure. Where should parents turn?
Sure. So I would give you the same advice. That is, seek out an audiologist. We do see children. We do test children. Testing children is a little bit more complicated, so we don't do those visits for free. You know, sometimes wrestling a 4-year-old and trying to get them to do, but most of the time insurance will cover those things. So seek out a qualified audiologist. We do see kids on a fairly regular basis who failed a hearing test at school or were having some trouble, and a lot of times it's no big deal. Yeah, you got some fluid in your ears. A lot of kids have that. Most of them will outgrow it by the age of 6 or 7 or 8, and that does not mean just because your kid had tubes or because my child, you know, had fluid a lot, that's going to be a lifelong problem. It's almost always something that they grow out of. But yeah, just seeking out an audiologist. We can quickly look at the ears. We can quickly do a hearing test and just establish, okay, is this something that you need to talk to your pediatrician about? Do you need to see an ENT? Or is it something bigger that we need to do a little bit more investigation
on? The childhood hearing test the raise your hand, this side or that side?
You know, it depends on the age of the child. So that's actually really interesting. When we can test a kid that is 10 months old.
Wow.
Something called visual reinforcement audiometry. So the child sits in a high chair. We present a sound stimulus. When they turn the first time, so we'll present it at a loud level that we know they heard, they turn, we'll light up a toy for them. Well, then the kid realizes that every time that sound happens, I get to see that toy. We're reinforcing that behavior. And you can actually get a very accurate test from doing that. As they get a little bit older, so 2- and 3-year-olds, are terrible. At least that's what I hear. At least that's what I remember from my kids. Hopefully they're not watching. You know, we'll do something like play a game like, okay, every time you hear the beep, I want you to put this block in. Or I've got a nice little Connect 4 game that we'll play Connect 4. And then, sure, as we get to 6 and 7 and 8 years old, well, you know, we're big enough to raise our hand and tell when we hear a beep. So, yeah, there's little tricks. There's even a Cheerio machine that you can push a button and get a Cheerio. I can't afford that yet. But
I said that could be pretty popular. Yep,
yeah,
I hear it.
Yeah,
yep,
exactly. That's the problem with that one.
Well, let's advance. I know you talked about it before, but in case people are just joining us, first visit your office for an adult. What does that look like?
Okay, so the first time people come in, the biggest thing I want to find out is why are you here, and tell me about what you're experiencing. And sometimes it's very mild symptoms, like several people have called in about we have some ringing in our ears, you know, and just establishing a baseline. A lot of times when people come in, it's that 5 to 7 year period that we talked about earlier to say, okay, I've been putting this off for a long time. I know I've got something going on. I'm here to find out what is the extent of my hearing loss and what do we do about it. So we do an evaluation. I sit down with the patient. I always encourage a family member to come. It helps to have 4 ears hearing it. It also helps in that dialogue. If I had one thing to say when you go see the audiologist the first time, take your spouse, take your daughter, take your son, take somebody that's important in your life. I'm not a marriage counselor, but I have done quite a bit of it in my career to explain, you know what? He really doesn't have selective hearing. You know, there really are these sounds that we're missing. Or, you know what, she's really not ignoring you when the TV is on. This is why this is a challenge. And so I like to talk through what situations that person's having a problem and really explain, why is it hard to hear in a noisy restaurant? You know, why can I understand male voices better than female voices? And really talk through that. We spend an hour and a half at that visit at no charge because I want my audiologist, or I want myself to be able to explain to those people what's really happening. And then certainly if hearing aids are an option or if something else is an option, we're going to talk about potential solutions. What does this look like? What does this cost? How could we do a trial period if we want to proceed? And usually I hope that people leave that visit, if nothing else, much more aware of what their options are, much more aware, much more educated on hearing aids. They don't leave with a high pressure sales pitch, but they leave knowing a lot more about it.
I want to ask you a question that's not about hearing aids.
Okay.
You know, I was told this once. I've always wondered if this was accurate or not. We get fitted for these IFBs as part of TV, and when I was getting fitted, the man who
Nick
said,
asked me the same question, by the way.
Said, you know, you're never supposed to stick something in your ear that's smaller than your elbow. And talking about Q-tips.
Yes.
Is that true? How do you clean your
now,
ears
I am
properly?
on television, right? So, as an audiologist, I must come out anti-Q-tip. Sorry, Q-tip people. Sorry about that, okay? Q-tips in and of themselves, if I am just dabbing the outside of my ear, are probably not dangerous until somebody bumps into me and I ram it through my eardrum.
Yes.
The bigger challenge with Q-tips, and again, we're talking about stuff that's not very pleasant, but people who have a lot of wax, Q-tips ram it in, don't take it out. It's a little round ball, so all I can do is push it in further. And that becomes a problem when earwax becomes impacted. It gets very uncomfortable to take it out. We've got to send you to an ENT, or we do it in the office, but again, that's not a real comfortable procedure. So usually my recommendation is, if it really bugs you cleaning your ears, there's some over-the-counter drops. Every drugstore has them. I won't name a brand. They're all about the same, but just earwax drops. You put them in your ears, you rinse them out, and that tends to do a better job than cramming a Q-tip in there. Sorry, Q-tip people.
Inquiring minds wanted to know. Thank you.
No
All
problem.
right, we're going to take a quick break. Get that pen and paper ready. We're going to give you the number, the address to Dr. Gneewikow's office. You can write that down and get connected. Stay with us.